I should probably do an intro. Uh, well, I guess not this time, huh? So, hello. Welcome to my crazy save where I have things all over the place. I have drones and more drones in this world. And this is an old version of the autopilot, by the way. Just keep that in mind, that all the stuff that's going on is an older version. And it has work to be done. Let's get these signals out of the way because they're a little obnoxious. As you can see, I have stuff that flies back and forth, stuff that flies around in circles, and stuff that goes one way, but I don't actually prove it in this specific case. But there are one-way paths as well, and that's actually the stalking path. So basically, I have stuff. So like, got a bunch of buzzards. That's actually like a special vehicle that I designed to be much faster. That thing's just gonna zip across at like its maximum speed, which is 90 meters. I set it to 90 meters a second. And yeah, so basically, in a few moments, this thing's going to attach and then start doing its patrol path. Basically, this has taken a very large amount of work to get done, just to be able to like perform waypoint and point-to-point maneuvers and like orientation changes and everything. This is basically part of my drone AI project. And now that I've got the movement and navigation bit more or less sorted, there's still some things that need to be added to it. Also, I just want to showcase how scary this autopilot actually is, because it's actually ridiculously accurate with its movement, and I'm going to leave my HUD up actually. So we're going to a waypoint called Dead Drop, and once we arrive, we're going to drop like a rock and hit our max speed, which is 90 meters a second, and it'll try to lock itself to that successfully. And then look at that. Oh, that's a little scary. The autopilot is, of course, completely safe. It understands how to avoid that. We're just gonna let that fly up. So yeah, and of course, I have all these different ships flying about. This buzzard, for example, is just flying around in circles past these robot arms. I kind of want to also point out that my autopilot's translation system actually can handle like vectored thrust, but it's weird. There's a lot of weirdness. It's very weird. And I had to actually like turn the inertia dampeners off on each of these in order to get it to work. Because it turned out that subgrids just by default have inertia dampeners on, and you have to have a remote per, which is weird, but oh well. And of course that means this actually just drops like a rock when it's not running, which is sort of why it's also like really weird and unstable, because the autopilot doesn't actually understand that these are at an angle, but it's still able to approximate a position, which I think is very nice. So yeah, and then I guess this speedster here, which is speeding along, it actually is just going in a path that's just sort of like max speed. So it'll hit max speed and then only slow down like moments after. And it goes like, it does a path that like starts at the low zero, and it'll just kind of maneuver like a really quick drone. So yeah, let's just turn those off again. While I'm here, I may as well point out this crane. even though it's a little bit of a distraction. I have a crane, and this crane does crane things. I saw a thing. I've seen people like Splitsy using cranes before, and how they use build vision to control things. And I thought this might make things a little easier for people who want to do that. I'm just using keyboard controls, and this is basically just a crane with keyboard controls. And if I want to, I could switch the profiles. That's actually profile 1. I think this is profile 2. And so I have wrist controls as well. And I can like rotate the wrists. And there's also like that. So if I were to, could just have it all moving. Basically what this does is it takes, let me just choose the rotor base. In the custom data, every time you like add a profile, it adds this to it, and basically it controls both pistons and rotors, and you can set like the speed that it travels. And if I want to increase the speed that it travels in response to my key presses, I can increase or decrease this number, and this just gives me a quick and easy way to just define how it reacts to key presses. So yeah, and then of course I guess if I go back to 4, it resumes its original behavior, but now like at the different angle, because I had configured this to sort of like even out its movement. So yeah, but basically if I ever want to do something with a crane, I would probably try using this script. And the script, I think I called it piston and rotor keybinds, otherwise known as Park. And it runs pretty cleanly, like that's 0.05 milliseconds, but then again, that's on my processor, so you might get varying mileage. Yeah, that's pretty quick. Let's move on to showcasing the one thing that I needed in order to have the docking pass. As this thing goes and starts docking. That's so cool. So we're just gonna do the most painful teleportation tech ever. So here we are. Just pardon the lag, it has to load in all of that stuff. Basically, this little ship demonstrates the fact that I have a method for turning around, like holding specific orientations. Also, don't mind that thing in the background, that's actually just a Stingray. That's just an old drone that I used to defend my base in a much earlier What I Have Been Up To video. So yeah, but this thing basically will just fly. It'll maintain a particular orientation per stretch, and I figured out how to actually record that and get it to recognize the orientation it's supposed to have without any errors. It's actually a little complicated because it involved me having to make a system where I could read the previous waypoints and the next ones, and I wound up kind of doing something a little bit silly and hacky in the code, where I literally just I literally just take the waypoint, and instead of trying to get the next waypoint, I instead decrement the waypoint counter and then check what the waypoint is, and then increment it again. It's kind of funny. So yeah, basically that's actually all there is here. There isn't really much for me to show. I have some examples of ships that I had worked on, like this mining vessel and this cargo vessel, which probably, I don't know if that'll get in because it's got a lot of large thrusters, and those are kind of bad. Of course, this thing, I'm like so proud that this thing managed to get into a mod. It's like if you see anything like this, I said hello. So yeah, anyway, I guess that's all that's there here. So I'm going to do a death teleport tech into another world. So there we go. There we go. So, now that I have mysteriously teleported to a completely different save, I have stuff to showcase. So this is an actual really old drone. This thing uses raycast to navigate on planets. I've learned this is a bad idea because it has huge, like monumental performance costs. So instead, I changed to a different system of doing everything I possibly can to try to maintain a minimum altitude when flying. And that seems to minimize collisions very well. This thing, however, was just a question of how reckless I could be using raycasts, and I made this thing super reckless, and it's fun, but it's also laggy. So this version of mechs, this version of the Autopilot is never going to see the workshop because I don't want to be responsible for bringing down servers with raycasts. So that's really all that is. So there are a couple things here. I have this little mining ship, and I decided, like, this is a save with a friend. This didn't originally have this feature. I was just kind of playing around and seeing what I could do here. So I have like this to be able to like dock and undock. So if I were to like fly this around and then just be like, you know what, nah, I'm done. It can actually like automatically dock. It just has to travel to that one waypoint and then it turns around and docks. I'm only bringing this up again because there was actually a bug with the other one that I didn't catch, because when you have one waypoint, the autopilot actually seems to like short circuit on that, and I had to actually like rewrite part of the code in order to make sure that single waypoint docking paths were acceptable, because that's realistically what I need for this. Also, yeah, this has a display and a camera, not because I use it, but because the script requires it, because it's a very temporary wrapper code, and I have not actually completed it. So let's just demonstrate this. I'm not going to spend too much time on planet navigation, but I think this is the correct one. Yeah, nice to meet you. Oh, I need to actually lock to it. Come back. It's actually so much faster than I am, but it's going to start slowing down. There, I'm locked. Yep. Also, no human would be able to perform these maneuvers. Yeah, that just feels like really like an AI is piloting, which it is. Basically though, I'm just gonna quickly run down how this thing navigates terrain. So when it's above altitude, it sort of uses well, it's actually below altitude. Let's just mention this. It'll just change the angle it's flying at and try to get higher if it's below altitude. And there's a little bit of like, I think it uses the clearance too. So if it's like below altitude but it's within clearance, then it's not going to adjust, do like the knee-jerking adjustments. But say we are on like above altitude, like right now. So if we're above altitude, what it does is it actually just takes the waypoint location, which if I turn on the waypoints, Isomecha is right over there. So it takes that waypoint and then it basically subtracts it adds the difference in altitude to that. So if it's above, that's a negative number. So the waypoint Isomecha, which it's going to project a point that's kind of on a flat plane and then just downwards slightly by the height. And that just creates a nice rubber band effect so that it can steer. Let's turn around. Wrong one. There we go. So we're just gonna turn around and I'm just gonna time-lapse things until we get to the waypoint. So, now we have actually arrived at our waypoint. Let's go and actually get a new GPS. So, I have a waypoint called Mantis Space Obstacle, and I'm going to explain the last thing. And I guess we'll just stick with the Mantis because this thing is actually space capable. So if I just paste that in and run it, it's now going to try to navigate to that waypoint. And it's going to fly up to like its minimum altitude first, if it's below it, and then it's just going to go straight to space. And there we go. And it's going to adjust so that it's facing the correct orientation. I thought it would be best to showcase with this because I actually unlocked a pitch for this. Like you saw the other ones, how they were just kind of staying horizontal, like you'd expect most ships. This one though, I decided if I just took that off, the pitch locking, it would be easier to showcase the traveling to space. So, I'm actually going to use the powers of editing to just cut straight to the thing. So, I'll see you there. Okay. Come on, it's going to pathfind any second. It definitely looks like it's going to crash. Trust me, it has more thrust than it looks like it does. There we go. It's safe, see? I told you it was. And now in retrospect, you feel silly for feeling like it was going to crash. A human player would not make a maneuver like that, but haha. This is about efficiency. This is about drones, not humans. So it's just going to fly a mathematically constructed path from where the asteroid is and its position in the waypoint. I can actually show you the mathematical construction. So it's a little hard to see, but I want you to focus on the ones labeled waypoint near, edge point, waypoint bar, midpoint, and center. So this asteroid is kind of a weird case because the center is actually really weirdly offset in it. I don't understand why, but yeah, I extracted this using a tool that uses the same mechanism for actually determining where the waypoint should go. So basically what happens is when I recast the asteroid, it gets turned into a bounding sphere, which is inflated by my own vehicle's clearance and its own radius. And those are two separate values. Clearance is just the extra space between it and the thing it wants to travel past, just as an extra safety feature. Because you don't want to fly too close to the thing. And so what's happening here is it gets that sphere, it gets a center, it then does a virtual raycast from its position to the waypoint that it's trying to travel to, and then it gets the intercept in and out, takes half of that, it gets that distance, takes half of that, and then just kind of projects that to this midpoint, and then from there I take the angle from center to the midpoint, or if it's moving in the general direction that I'm trying to pass on, then it will take the opposite direction, but it's an asteroid, that's not going to move, so when you're avoiding a ship, it'll actually come into play. Midpoint, then, it calculates the midpoint and goes to the edge point. So from the center, it goes to the direction, and then it takes the radius and projects the point out to the edge point. And then from there, it uses the direction that from that position to the midpoint to project out forward and back the radius. And that provides the waypoint near and the waypoint bar, and those are the waypoints used to avoid the asteroid. It's a little wonky, I mean, it's not as smooth, and of course, if, for example, I'm traveling somewhere and the waypoints it generates are actually kind of weirdly shaped because the center is offset, it will like travel to the far waypoint before it diverges. I haven't added in a calculation that just checks if I'm free to skip to the destination or not. I should add in a checks for that, but not right now. It works right now and it's effective. So basically, that's just what happened there. It just mathematically constructed the path. And yeah, I will also say, I am particularly proud of this setup because I actually worked this out a very long time ago, and it's just recently that I implemented it. And before I tried something much more wonky by flattening vectors and stuff, and then I realized it probably costs less performance to perform a raycast against a virtual sphere, because that's just a sphere and an angle when you really think about it. So, yeah, I think that's everything. I'm just gonna head to this Sojourner, and I'm just gonna end the video there. Now, I just kind of have to work on my Space Engineer series for you guys, because I've had quite a bit of a hiatus, and I feel like it's about time I tried to bring that back. I have a little bit of a backlog because, I mean, yeah, how dare I have a backlog when I haven't been posting videos, but I really just, if you've been following YouTube news, you'd probably understand why I was a bit nervous to post new videos. And now that it seems my channel is still here and not taken down or anything, I'll be back, hopefully with a new episode. It'll probably be an old episode. I'll probably be building up my base a tiny bit. And maybe and then maybe I'm just going to really kick things off, because I went and I did a little bit of a personal survival, and I think I have a more clear idea of how I want to progress my base and what crazy things I might want to try, including stuff like having actual mining ships that are manually controlled, because PAM is good but it also means that I don't get to showcase that style of gameplay, and I've reconsidered. And I will keep Sumo around, but that's just going to be gathering ice for my hydrogen engines, and that'll be that. So I'll see you when I get around to that. Bye.